What is going on? Oh, surprise guest, Mr. Dan Agosh at the Colorado State Fair.
Hey,
Unexpected.
what's going on, guys? You guys can hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me all right, Cheech? I
Yeah,
got
I can
some.
hear you guys. Hear you guys here too. We're at the Colorado State Fair for a little bit, so I'm gonna be on for a short while here, and wanted to check in. And it's cool having if Aaron is Aaron on too?
Yeah, he's on. I just went live for. I'll just bring him in. Let's just go live now.
Okay.
And there he is, Mr. Aaron
Hello.
Basl. Aaron, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good. I think Cheech was kind of worried I wasn't going to show up.
Yeah, buddy. We're doing the kind of display right now here at the Colorado State Fair. They're gonna have a monster truck show here Friday and Saturday. The toughest tour. Your brother's gonna be there, Aaron.
Yeah, that'd be a good show.
Yeah, this is gonna be a good one with Team Throttle Monster and DCT, and I think Mr. Kim Jones and uh, one more. Nope, that's it. So that's gonna be a interesting program, to say the least. I'll be somewhat helping out there, but no, we're here until Monday, and then
Three stages at the fair are always jam-packed.
you can hear that with the little sound box there. It's always there, like every 10 minutes. So it's pretty cool around here as of right now. Have you done the race here before, Aaron?
I don't think I have.
The state fair here in Pueblo?
No, I don't think I have.
Gotcha.
That's a legendary, venue in the sport. Monster Wars. A lot of awesome races have happened there.
Oh yeah, a lot of good venues there. It was the first venue I ever saw when I rented monster truck bloopers.
Can you guys hear me?
They
Okay,
had that famous race between.
I got some new audio equipment, so hopefully I sound okay.
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, perfect. Well, might as well get into it. So, Aaron, how did you, a lot of people know of your career and how long you and your brother have been in the sport, but how did you get into this crazy world we call monster trucks?
I started off doing truck and tractor pulling with my family in Oregon, and all the little fairs we did throughout the Oregon area, Burns, Salem, Sublimity Harvest Festival, name a few. They always had 2 or 3 monster trucks at the events, and then of course, since we're in the back area with the race trucks, we could hang out with the drivers. So we just talked to the drivers, and if they needed help with anything, just like a lot of people that come up to me nowadays, ask if I need help or anything. I did the same thing back then, and finally found a team that was looking to train somebody to work on them and haul them around. And naturally, since I had my commercial driver's license from working on farms throughout my life, kind of gave me a little edge there so that I could drive the semi up and down the road. So I started off truck and tractor pulling and hanging out in the pit area with the drivers like Mike Welch. He was probably the first one to ever let me drive his cool bus in the field. Jeff Baynard, worked for him for a couple of years, drove the Hot Stuff Jeep for a little bit and campaigned his other race truck for a while. And then Jimmy Cretin hired me and Darren. Worked for him for a while, and then after that, I went to Race Source for 15 years, and then working alongside Pablo Huffaker in one of the Gravedigger trucks, and Darren went to the King Crunch team. We did that for 15 years before we were able to finally buy one of the, I think, top-notch trucks in the industry at the time, the Devastator.
So when you were with Pablo, I remember one time I was working with Monster Jam in 2015, and we had to basically get the trucks at the shop working on stuff like that. And Pablo was with working on the CNC machines, and he seemed like a wild man. What was he always like that? Like he always reminded me of like the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, just moving around all the time with little time moving around. Because when I was talking to, I think it was Brian Wright, it was pretty much he was relying on like you or Brian to get the trucks ready to go while he was working on the CNC machines. Was that correct?
Oh yeah, yep. When the trucks hit the shop, we had a game plan Monday morning every time the trucks rolled into the shop, and Pablo was nonstop. He was 100% CNC running all week long while the trucks were there, and I took care of both the trucks most of the time, and along with whoever else would show up at the shop. Brian Wright was there a few times. Dylan Finley came in and helped for a while, and Dan Collins, he helped me a lot. But most of the time it was just me and whoever I could wrangle to help me, making sure the trucks were 100% so they could hit the door and hit the track again on Saturday or Friday. But yeah, Pablo, he's a guru on those CNC machines. He self-taught and doesn't rely on a whole lot of anybody. He can machine anything.
Well, I think it's interesting that both you and your brother ended up, with Texas-based teams, and that's always been such a cool thing because, in that time period, in the mid to early 2000s, the two big teams at Texas was the Racehorse team and David Smith's team. And how was that for you guys? Starting together in Oregon, and all of a sudden you guys are both in Texas, doing it and living your dreams. Like, how was that for you guys?
Oh, it was pretty cool because not very many people get to work with their brother or family member and be in the same town and live in the same house. So to have two race teams that close together, and both of them needing drivers and crew and all that, it worked out pretty good because when I was home, he would be home for a little bit, and so we got to not only have a house together and work on top-notch teams, but we got to spend a lot of time with each other. Being twins, everybody always asks, what's it like being a twin? Well, I've always been a twin, so I can't really explain that. We've got a pretty tight bond, so it's staying in the same area was really helpful because we've lived with each other our whole lives. We haven't really spent a whole lot of time apart until we parted ways with Race Source in King French. Then we moved to separate towns, which I live in Nebraska now, and he still lives in Texas. So that was a huge change, not being able to live in the same area. But we've managed, and I think it's brought us a little closer. We still living our dream and still doing it. So we're having fun.
So back in 2015, you two were teammates for a little bit with David Smith's monster trucks, and you had Tall as your crew chief. Man, how was that experience being one of the first to do that new arena series? And how did that come about with you and your brother, and then you have Tall there trying to start something new that now is pretty much the pinnacle average arena monster truck show for Monster Jam.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. We got to do a lot of cool stuff being the first ones to try that out. We got to go to a lot of practices and simulated arena stuff out at Tom Mentz's place, and actually had at the time nobody really practiced a full show in somebody's backyard, so that was kind of neat to be able to be part of that. We got to go to the IMG Academy and do a bunch of health training and all that, and I don't really know how, because Dave was in charge of all that. I don't really know how it came about that they picked his two trucks and wanted us on it. But it was pretty cool to be one of the first to, kind of pioneer that triple threat is what it was called at the time. One driver, three machines. Tall had his hand race trucks together because the drivers weren't really allowed to work on anything. So if the trucks were tore up, Tall would have to work on them, get them ready for the next round, while me and Darren went off and tore up somebody else's speedster or four-wheeler. So it was pretty fun. A lot of people didn't like it as racers because it was like not a whole lot of monster truck. It was more of the speedsters and four-wheelers, but it was fun. It's something different. Kind of changed it up. 5 years of it got kind of tiring, but
well, like, we've had some people on that have done that, series. And what was like, did you guys have to have like a workout regimen or like a conditioning? Because, You know, you guys were going from the monster trucks to the ATVs to the speedsters, back to the monsters. You know, what kind of training did they have you guys do in preparation for that? And the second part of that is, how hard was it for you guys not to go in and help Too Tall? Because, you know, you guys are crew guys as well. How hard was that for you?
Yeah, well, the not helping part was pretty tough for me and Darren because that's all we've ever done is work on them. You drive them, you work on them, you make sure they run. So, the couple seconds we had between climbing out of the truck and going to the next place, we would just kind of scream out what it is we thought was wrong with the truck or what we thought needed to get taken out of the trailer to bring to fix the truck, and then just pretty much relied on him. He was a pretty good worker. He knew what he was doing, so we didn't really have a whole lot to worry about. We just give our 2 cents as we ran by him, and he'd be like, "All right, I got it." As far as the fitness part of it, me and Darren have been pretty active in the gym our whole lives, so they didn't really have a whole lot to tell us. They gave us some ideas on what types of foods to eat and what kind of cardio workouts to do, but they didn't really stress that as much as they made it out to be. Well, I should say that, but most of the time they put the elements in places where we didn't have to run as far as they made it out to be. So it wasn't like super strict workout regiment, but it helped that everybody that was on the tour at least had some sort of gym training or already worked out to begin with.
Yeah, you guys are doing something brand new. With you guys, you also had, Milliken and Cody Saucier and Becky and Bailey, shoot, many more. You guys seem like it looked like you guys were together for the whole season. And were you all nervous at first about this because of this new format that they so-called would change the industry, which pretty much a lot of promoters are trying to a little bit follow them. But when you guys first were part of this group, were you guys nervous about it?
Well, speaking for myself, I always get nervous. Doesn't matter if it's that show or one here tomorrow. But I think we all had butterflies, some doubts to see if it was even going to work. Because they changed up the track so much that nobody ever who had ever thought about hitting logs other than Mike Welch in a pod situation inside a set of dasher boards. They give you that big machine and the speedster and the four-wheelers. They tell you to go out there and perform, but don't do any damage. So we go out there. We don't know how far we can push the limits yet on the speedsters or the four-wheelers. We kind of know what we can do with the race trucks because we ran in that situation before. But, I think the nervous part was not knowing how far you could push the machines that they owned and not get fired or get kicked off the team. So it took a few shows to figure it out. Once we figured out that they were going to let us, bang doors and run the speedsters pretty hard, it got pretty fun. It got pretty competitive, especially between, me and having a brain fart here.
All right. Yeah, you're facing a lot of people,
I think the funnest, the first group of people that we ran with, Millikens and Eichelbergers and Becky, we all got along pretty well. So, we wanted to, they're all good top-notch drivers and up and coming drivers that, set the stage for a lot of other people. So, we're always trying to one up each other. We just had a lot of fun. It was like a big family.
How was it when you found out, like Bailey, and Dalton, had quad experience? What was it like for you knowing like, oh crap, these guys are going to be ringers at this part? And what kind of like, did you have any like ATV racing experience at all before that, or even like driving side by sides? You were just kind of thrown into that, eh?
Just pretty much thrown in it. All the ATV riding. I did some sand dune riding when I was growing up. Nothing crazy or extreme like they did. I did a lot of off-road four-wheeling, like 4x4 four-wheelers and stuff like that. Nothing to ever jump or anything or actually compete racing. Um, those two actually helped everybody out tremendously. If you had a question and you asked them, yeah, we're competitors, but they didn't want to see anybody get hurt or anything, and they wanted the competition too. So if you asked them a question, they would help you out, make you better, made the show better. And it wasn't, at first they were just running away from everybody. You could obviously tell that they were in the league that they were in, and the rest of us were just out there trying to survive, trying not to get injured. But they were super helpful, and I actually got a lot better on the four-wheeler just because of them.
So let's move up to the with the Devastator world. How did that come about? You were working with so many awesome monster truck teams. The road was really windy and long, but what convinced you to be like, okay, I want to own my own team? Was that always the plan for you guys? Or, I mean, I guess that's a lot of people's plans to own their own monster truck team. But how did the setup work to get one of the kind of a very, very good piece of equipment?
Yeah, no, definitely owning our own truck is always been like our goal. We learned a lot throughout the 15, 20 years we've been doing this with various race teams. And, our, that new rendering of the truck that I'm building, that's my goal. I've been working on that new truck for 20 something years, trying to piece it together one piece at a time. It's very expensive. Never thought it would take me 20 years to actually own my own, but kind of glad it did, because it gave me a lot more knowledge throughout the teams I worked for, so that I didn't just get it, fail, and have to start over. I've seen a lot of people do that. Getting into the Devastator, it was just luck, I guess. Me and Mark, we were ever since he bought this truck from Race Source, I actually started. He bought this truck was finished in 2004 by Pablo. Mark took it, and it left a week before I started working for Race Source. So I never actually got to see it in the shop. I just built parts for it and shipped them out the door. So it's kind of neat to think that it came from a shop that I worked at. I built parts for it. But he campaigned it and did an awesome job. He was at my house one day, and we were just joking around saying, hey, I'd like to own that one of these days. He goes, well, you probably could. I was like, yeah, whatever. It's like just joking around. And, he went home and got a phone call, and he didn't really want to get out of the business, I don't think, but he had some health complications that wasn't going to allow him to drive. And he didn't want to sell the truck in pieces, like sell the motorhome, sell the trailer, sell the racetrack in pieces. He just wanted, if it was going to go somewhere, he wanted to know it was going to get taken care of. So we talked back and forth, and I've known Mark for 15 years or so. Good friend, stay at his house, go boating. We worked out a deal where I could take it over and keep his name going, because it's a cool truck. It's got a cool fan base. It's bright. Everybody loves it, so we worked out a deal where I could bring it back to Nebraska and keep it going, just over a joking comment of, man, I'd like to have that parked in my driveway someday.
Well, it's kind of cool because you drove that truck back in 2018 for him in a stadium tour, and you rolled the truck for the second time ever. What was that phone call to make to him? It was like, I rolled it.
Actually, I didn't have to make the phone call. He was crewing for me. We had loaded it up in the shop, loaded up in his house. We drove to that show, and that body hadn't I think he had just put the body back on it. He was working on it or something. He had just fixed the front bumper because he had wrecked it running into something or loader or something. And first thing out the gate, it goes over. Man, I felt bad. It tore the tailgate all off of it, bed mounts. Yeah, that drive back to the pits, that was a rough one. Because I don't own it, but I try to treat it like my own, even when he was running it. So I'm like, man, this is going to cost a lot of money. I don't have to pay for it at that time, but he did. So I kind of knew how that felt. So no, it wasn't fun.
He's always kept his trucks in top-notch shape. Like one of my favorite ever designs was when he had the OBS body back in the day. It was like one of his first trucks. Like, would you ever bring that body and that design back ever with Devastator?
Was that the old, was that all red with the green letters or something?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I mean, everybody seems to like this bright, flashy, Hot Wheels design color thing. I always get people coming up to me, don't ever change that. Don't ever change it. Everybody's like, you gonna change the color scheme or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no. I get quite a few people saying don't ever change it. So I think it'll probably stay, as long as it's a Devastator, it'll probably just stay the same color.
So, let's go back to 2019 a little bit. You drove, for Raising Cane, J.R. McNeil.
Yep.
How did that come about, and how was your time with them at, driving? Because I think you drove Monster Mutts, and then you also drove Wolf's Head as well.
Yep. Oh, that was fun. I had seen JR at some shows, some stadiums. I never really talked to him. He was kind of a big heavy hitter at the time when I knew him. He so I didn't really know how to approach him. He's like a Tom Mentz to me. He's got the flashiest trucks. He ran hard. I just heard through my older brother Ryan at one time that JR was looking for a driver to step in the seat so he didn't have to drive as much. Jack Brown was working there at the time, and they had this new Wolf's Head truck that they wanted to debut, and they needed somebody full time to run it if they debuted it. So I wasn't doing anything. I was in between race teams, and the Devastator thing hadn't come up yet, and so I gave him a call, just seeing what he was up to, and we hit it off. We actually got along really well. I mean, I still talk to him to this day. Him and Josh Ross and Mike Langford, crew guys at the time. We get along really well. So he had me debut the Wolf's Head truck, and then it just went on from there. He just kept calling me and wanted to know if I'd just keep driving for him. So it was a fun time. JR's fun.
Oh, we've had him on the podcast before, and that was such an awesome conversation. Like, he took time out of his dinner with his wife and chatted with us. And, anytime we've gotten to talk with him, or we've had a couple people on from his team on, and it's always been an awesome time. One question that I have, why Nebraska? It doesn't strike me as a monster truck state. Why the move from Texas to Nebraska to base the team out of there?
Well, I got engaged. At the time, I got engaged to my wife, Amy Wazorek. I don't know if you know the Wazorek name.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Wazorek is now my father-in-law. And when I got engaged, I gave my wife, Amy, she followed me to Texas when I was living down there, and she went down there to go to college. She spent a couple of years down there supporting me doing the monster truck thing. And when I got engaged, we had the option of either going to Oregon, where I grew up, or come back to her hometown, Grand Island. And we decided that we wanted to spend time with her family and her nieces and nephews and watch them grow up. So we moved back to Nebraska. Actually moved right next door to Dave. So.
And how is that? Because we had Dave on. I forget what year we had him on, but how is it having a legend in the sport as your father-in-law? And he was at the TNT Unfinished Business, competing again. How is that as well for him, and you being there, coaching him how to drive a modern day truck.
It's pretty cool. I never thought that would ever come around. I've done a lot of shows with Dave and his robots, the Galactron and Reptar. Got to drive Reptar a couple times, and to actually move next door to him. I can go over there whenever I want. I can just walk across the field, go over there, check out what he's doing, get in his business, slow him down. You go over there and start talking to him, he just forgets what he's doing. He's like, I get him all
Squirrel!
sidetracked, but it's a lot of fun. It's brought not only Amy's family closer together, I think, but it's brought my wife and I closer together because we can spend time. We can take our son Axel over there. He can play in the shop or ride around on the lawnmower with him. It's a lot of fun. He's got some knowledge and on stuff that he used to do when he was racing the monster truck, the nightlife truck, that still to this day pertains to the modern day truck. So they run a little different, but he's helped me out a couple times, and to be able to go to the unfinished business and be his crew chief with Mikey Vaughters and kind of coach him on how to drive a modern nitrogen shock truck, that was pretty fun because he did really well, and it was pretty cool to see him behind the wheel again.
Oh yeah, and they set him up in a badass piece, Eddie Micah chassis, and would you? Because I don't know who technically owns the name, but would you ever put that body on your truck and let him run it at a show?
Absolutely, I'd put Dave in this truck any day.
See if he can still whoop up on these young kids again.
Yeah, I think he'd do pretty good actually. I've joked with him saying like, yeah, I'd like to run the nightlife name one of these days. And he's like, oh, go for it. It's that'd be pretty cool. So who knows? We might be able to do that one of these days. You never know.
Yeah. Well, and another name that you own through the purchase of Devastator is the Felon.
Yep.
Have you had the chance to run that yet? What's the plans for the Felon name?
I haven't run it yet. It's just hanging up in the rafters here, looking good. Looks good right over there. No, we haven't run it. It would be pretty cool if I get this other chassis done to put it on there, or put the Devastator on the new one and put Felon on this one, and run them at the same show because they've never ran at the same show. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think Mark would get a kick out of it to see both the names that he created on the same floor at the same time, because they've never got to race each other because he's always had just one truck to put the body on. So
that'd be pretty sweet.
Yep, that's another option that could happen down the road.
So with the new truck, are you building it, strictly in-house yourself?
Yep, it's in-house. My brother and I built the chassis. It's kind of when we worked for Dave Smith, we built two of Rick Swanson's trucks, the Obsessed and Obsession chassis. Yeah. And when we were building that, I built a third one with a few changes on it, and that one became mine. So I've just been packing it around the states I've been living in, piecing it together one piece at a time. But it looks the lower half of the chassis looks like the Obsessed and Obsession truck because they're built off the same design. But everything from the frame rails up is all custom built by me and Darren to fit the new tractor body. Yeah,
that's gonna be interesting. And I seen what Mike Arndt did, and shout out to Mike Arndt. That dude, even when I've been learning Adobe Illustrator, that dude's been such a huge help. And talk about like the kind of idea behind the tractor body, because like there's so many different, like Hot Wheels just came out with their fire truck body, and that looks damn impossible to see out of.
Why is impossible to see out of?
why the tractor body? Because I love it personally because I love anything that's different.
Yeah, well, the tractor body has been a lifelong dream of mine. When I was doing truck and tractor pulling, I would always tell my dad, I grew up driving John Deere tractors, Steigers and stuff on the farms growing up through high school. I always wanted to take a double tired Steiger and put a blower motor in it and use it for exhibition pulling. So when I got into monster trucks, I immediately knew what I wanted to do. So I hand drew some really, some hand-drawn pictures of what it might look like. And then when I hooked up with Michael Arndt, which I can't thank him enough for keeping it a secret for like 18 years, he did that drawing a long time ago. No kidding. And I told him, don't let this get out to anybody. And he did a good job keeping it a secret. But I just always wanted to do a John Deere tractor type monster truck. And when he drew that, we went through conversations over the phone, through text messages, and he just kept sending renderings back and forth to me, and he nailed it. It's exactly what I want it to look like. And I can tell you, I'm looking at it across the room right here, and it looks just like the rendering. So it's going to be pretty cool. It's just a lifelong goal of mine, and hopefully everybody likes it when it's done. But it's a very expensive truck because none of those parts are cheap. But so if anybody wants to fund it, get it out there sooner, send me a message. Shameless plug there. Seem to have lost you.
Sorry, I lost internet there for a minute.
Oh, did you catch any of that?
It dropped out after the thanking Arndt for 18 years.
Oh, yeah. Michael Arndt, he came up.
Stupid internet.
He came up with that through a bunch of messages through Facebook Messenger. We just kept shooting messages back and forth, and I would send him pictures of tractor parts and all this and all that, and he sent me that rendering back, and he nailed it. That's exactly what I wanted to look like, and that's exactly what it's going to look like, because I'm looking at it across the shop right here, and it looks pretty sweet.
So when do you think that's going to be debuted? Probably the next couple of years or so?
Hopefully next year. Well, it all depends on if somebody wants to help fund the project. Got any takers?
See, like that's always the hardest part,
I know it's
being an independent team. You don't have, you don't have the big budgets, and
yeah.
But like I think once this thing debuts, it's gonna turn some heads because we've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah. I hope so. Funny thing is, me and Darren, we bought the Devastator thinking we'd have extra money to dump into the new truck and get it done sooner. But, these things take a lot of maintenance. So there's not a whole lot of money that goes over there. So we're still funding it out of our own pocket. So, no, it's going to be pretty cool. The whole point of sending that rendering out is because it's close to being done. There's a handful of people that I've told throughout the years that I could trust that not, leak it out or have somebody with a bunch of money go out there and build it. They know how long I've been working on it. But I just, my wife talked me into releasing the rendering, mainly just to show that, it's almost complete. And then if somebody else decides they want to build one, at least they know that we're the first ones to try it.
See, that's always the hard part for me being a designer, because like when I create something awesome for somebody, I'm like, I just want to show it off. And that's the hardest part. And like I said, Mike is stupid talented at what he does, like with the body ideas, and another person like that is Jason Becker, Master of Faster. Jason, your brother's driving a truck that's designed by him, and like it's incredible. Like I want to ask you, like, what are some of your favorite trucks that you've been able to be around, like design wise, or like just like, when you look at it, like, man, that is a nice looking truck. Like, what are some of the ones that you've always looked at, like, damn?
I'm a fan of the older ones. The newer ones, like the Blockhead, it's pretty cool in person. I grew up playing with Legos. I love that truck. It's bright and flashy, kind of like the Devastator, bright colors. We got pictures of both those trucks next to each other, and they look pretty good paired up. So, I don't know, Jerry Beck, put this truck in your trailer. We'll campaign both. But no, the blacksmith truck, I was always keen to that one. It was different. It was different than any other truck out there. It was fun to drive. One of my personal favorites was the Wolverine truck that I drove. That was fun. Kids loved it. Could really get into the character. I'm a Wolverine fan, but I like I don't like the outrageous 3D concept ones. I like something that looks like something, a truck or like my tractor, or I don't like, not a big fan of you know, um, the really weird, like the Wild Thing bodies or anything like that. The dinosaur bodies are cool. The Jurassic Attack, that's pretty cool because it looks like what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
If you can't tell what it looks like, I'm not really into it.
I will say, like, I drove Don's ride chuck when he still had the Jurassic Attack name and the body, and you could see fairly decent out of the body on that truck. And
Yeah.
there's some trucks that I've sat in. I don't know. I forget which truck of Bill Payne's I sat in when I helped crew for them one time out here, but you couldn't hardly see a lot of anything. It was low visibility,
Yeah.
and like I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine like Dark Crew Dozer, the visibility you see out of that, with the blade in front, I feel like you'd have some issues looking out of that thing.
Yeah, Darren drove that one, and I actually asked him if that blade hinders his visibility. He says you can't even see it from the driver's seat, so you don't even know it's on there. So they did. I think they kept that in mind when they built it. So he says it's just like driving a regular pickup. See, you can see pretty good.
But then you have a truck like Higher Education and that new Hot Wheels truck, and like I couldn't imagine, like, because like I've driven the Higher Education truck virtually, and it just, in cockpit view, you can hardly see anything out of that. You'd almost have to put
Yeah, I don't.
like a clear front on it, and then do like a perforated window graphic to see out of it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know how they see out of that either. I like the small cabs that feel like go-karts, but I like to be able to see out of them too.
Oh yeah, I bet, and one question that I always like to ask people is, do you, like, your first time ever hitting a set of cars or getting air in a truck, how was that moment for you? Because like I've heard it described as, like, you think you get super high air, but then you're just like, yeah, you only got a foot.
Yeah, you think you're getting off the ground. The first time I ever drove a race truck in a racing situation was actually Don Cretan's Scarlet Bandit truck in Portland, Oregon, when they did side by side straight line racings in the Coliseum. Um, I can't remember if Don couldn't make it or her plane was late or whatever. But anyways, Jimmy said, "Well, tonight you're driving." I was like, "Well, I've never even raced. It doesn't matter. You just go in a straight line, and we'll figure out if you can do it or not." It's like, all right. So I thought I was getting serious air because back then it was cars with a little bit of ramp in front of them. Not a lot of dirt or anything. But 26 inches travel of shock when it extends and hits the limit straps. Just that alone feels like you're getting off the ground when you're first driving. So I probably got like 6 inches off the ground. I got enough to get over the cars. I didn't clear the cars. I'm not even going to say I did. But I thought I was like getting like 20 feet of air. Oh no.
Yeah.
I barely made it over the cars.
How is the horsepower? Because I've gotten to work on some of Jimmy's trucks. When Darren Miguez drove and Trent Montgomery drove for Jimmy, and the big thing is the Cretan horsepower. They always talked about that in the early Monster Jam broadcasts. Is it as intense as people kind of say it is? Does it because he always made big power.
Oh yeah, no. When I worked for him, he always had big Pontiac motors. 18, 19, 2,000 horsepower motors, and I believe every bit of that because if he always told me that he had people drive his trucks and say they could drive his trucks, but they'd get strapped in and they'd hit the gas and immediately lift because it scared them. He's like, "Well, you're never going to drive this because you can't even hold the throttle down." But no, his engines make big power. I don't. The Devastator truck, this engine makes a lot of power. I would compare this one to Jimmy's if I had to compare engines, but Jimmy's he's always put the best of the best in his engines, and you don't need 2,000 horsepower get these around the track, but he sure gets it.
Oh, like you look at, I don't know what year Montreal, but like whenever Jimmy would pull off just a sick power wheelie, because there was hardly any trucks that did it at the time. There was him, there was Scott Hartsock. You know, you don't see that today, but back in the day, it was like commonplace. You know, to see power wheelies. Do you like?
Yeah.
I've always wondered why he went with the Pontiac motor instead of like a normal, a Chevy or something like that.
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that one. That's just what he liked. That's what he knew. All of his engine guys, that's what they knew. So I think it's just because he wanted something different. And I don't know if Pontiacs make more horsepower, or maybe he just likes more expensive parts. I don't know. But there are always some sweet pieces.
And Jimmy's a very interesting guy. I've gotten to meet him a couple of times, and it's interesting how his brain works. Like you look at what he did to his truck, and I've gotten to see his truck with the body off. I'm like, this is insane. It reminds me of like when they came out with the skinny Awesome Kong.
Yeah.
Like being around him and working for him. Like he's a mad scientist, isn't he?
He is. Well, he's an engineer by nature. That's what he went to school for. That's what he's got his degree in. So well, he's been doing it so long. He's got a lot of ideas, and they work for him.
I don't understand how that guy's brain works. Even like I remember Edmonton. I live about like 4.5 hours away from Edmonton, so I've been to the Throwdown show, and I think it was 2019, and I think it was like Friday night. It was raining. He did like he was supposed to do the backflip attempt. He did like 6 or 7 run-ups and just said screw it and did the most ridiculous backflip I've ever seen. And I'm like, only Jimmy Cretin could pull something off like that.
Yeah, no, well, he gets his mind set to something, he'll do it.
And another
all cost.
Oh yeah, and another person that kind of had that, which Cheech mentioned earlier, was Pablo. Pablo is such an innovator in the sport. You look at all what he's done from back when he was driving the Just Showing Off and all that. What was it like being around him in his career? Because his career span, from the TNT days all the way to the modern stuff.
Yeah,
what like, yeah,
it's cool.
I bet.
Because he ran the Gravedigger truck every weekend into the ground. So, every part that was on that chassis, from the chassis to everything but the body, was his. He built, he machined, he built for other race teams, because he's a parts manufacturer. So, he would put something new on his truck. He'd go out there and beat it into the ground. If it didn't work, he would change it, So I got to see a lot of stuff that he got to try that never made it to other teams because he didn't like it or it didn't work out. But, that's, part of the reason I like the Devastator truck is everything on its race source. I know what Pablo put all those parts through to get them to where they are today, and that's beating the crap out of them every weekend. So they're tried, tested, proven, and I got to see the whole circle of how those things get made. From the stock that he orders to how he machines it, how he programs it, and all that. He's just a wealth of information, and pretty cool to be able to say that I got to watch him build parts, and I got to help build the parts. He taught me how to run some of the machines, some of the CNC machines, got to run his water jet for him. So I got to, help produce some of the parts also.
And I think his digger truck was, and you mentioned, everything besides the body he made. I think pretty much he was one of the only modern diggers to not be all felled parts. It was his own creation. And what was it like for you, running like Blacksmith and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And personally for me, Blacksmith was always one of my favorite trucks. Like it was so subtly designed, it worked. What was like even the visibility out of it, because Blacksmith seat it's like a very narrow kind of cab for that truck.
Yeah, it felt like, to me, I compare it to driving a go-kart. I mean, it had a set of race source shocks on it, but different than what was on the digger truck, because he wanted 2 trucks with different sets that he sold to see how they worked. It handled like a go-kart. It was smooth on the big jumps. It was fun to drive. It was basically an identical piece to his Gravedigger, minus the shocks in the body. But it was a fun piece to drive. If I had it today, I wouldn't be scared to run it. I wish I had it.
You have also driven some of the Flame Motorsports trucks. You drove El Matador, which your brother drove for many years. Then when Dylan owned, I don't know if Dylan still owns the team or not. You drove
Yep,
Nitro Hornet.
Yep.
How is it running? Those trucks is compared to some of the other trucks you've driven in your career.
Those are pretty similar to what I drive now and what I drove with Pablo, because I believe the chassis that I drove was one that Pablo built, so it wasn't much different. They handled about the same. It had the same shock packages I've got right now on the Devastator, so it was a pretty nice landing, pretty forgiving truck. Another good piece out there.
Because being somebody looking on the outside, it it sometimes looks like all the trucks are like handle the same. Like you don't notice certain things until you probably get in the seat. Like
they
what are
they don't all handle the same.
no, but like knowing that now, like for myself, being a fan, as much as how long as I've been, what are some of like comparing, let's say, like a CRD to like a racehorse, what were, like, if you've driven a CRD, what are some of the main differences that you felt, comparing the two?
I don't think I've personally driven a CRD chassis. I think all I've ever driven was a Patrick chassis and a racehorse chassis.
So like let's go with Patrick and racehorse. Like what were some of the big differences and some of the similarities between the two? Because I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about the differences between how each of the chassis work.
The big differences are the shocks. It's all in how the shocks are valved, and how you get people like, I floated around driving other people's equipment after somebody else had driven it. So if you get into a truck where somebody was driving it that just wants to drive, they don't care how it lands, they just want to drive, they don't want to work on it or anything, they think it lands good. But when you get into it like I do, and you want it to land nice, you want to be able to make the race passes and not worry about freestyle and all that, I can get into a truck and be like, this thing lands like crap. Yeah, you drove this? They're like, oh yeah, it lands nice. Like, man, this land, if you think this lands nice, go drive mine, because you won't think this drives nice.
They're just walking around with a cane. Yeah, it drives nice.
Yeah. So I've driven some trucks that people have said land really nice, and I've blown bump stops off of them because they don't land very good. And it's not their fault, they just don't know. And the people they're working for, they don't, if the person driving it doesn't know there's something wrong, they can't tell the owner that there's something wrong. You know what I mean? So if I get into a truck and it blows a bump stop off, I'm like, there's something wrong with this. It should not hardly ever touch those. The Devastator truck, it's got 15-year-old bump stops on it because the shocks work so good. If I blow a bump stop off, I know there's something wrong with my shocks. So the biggest thing is shocks when I drive trucks. So
another person that we mentioned, kind of when Cheech was on, was Too Tall. And, now seeing him, kicking ass with Team Throttle Monster, and he was your guys' crew chief. How is that for you to see him just, kicking ass in, Velociraptor, and what like, you got to be proud of the guy.
It's pretty cool. I knew he could, he's a pretty good wheelman behind the wheel of a Razor. So, it's not a huge surprise that he's really good at driving a race truck, but, I honestly didn't think he was that good, but he's good. He's not only can he work on the truck, but it's good to see that somebody finally gave him the opportunity to show what he's capable of doing. Everybody, I'm sure I've always told him, you're never going to drive a race truck. You're not good enough for it. Good for him for proving them wrong. He's a madman behind the wheel, and if I could do some of the stuff that he does, that would be pretty sweet.
Like I've gotten to see him driving in the big stadium in Edmonton and the hockey arena in Edmonton, and the dude just absolutely rips behind the wheel. And and you've also gotten to compete against Cheech a couple times now. How is that running against that guy?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I think the first time I ran against him, it was in the mud, so that wasn't very fun. We did a lot of washing. And then this last time we did it in the extreme heat, and he himself overheated. So he does a good job. We haven't been on any really big tracks together, so I haven't got to see him use the extreme Hemi power that they have. So, but he's done a good job. He's kept right up with us. So I'm pretty proud of him. It's pretty cool.
And it's cool for me as a longtime friend and co-host to see him just living his dream, and it's crazy, to think that, 10, 11 years ago, we were playing virtual Monster Truck Madness 2. We were playing MCM2 together, and now he's doing it for real. And it's insane to think about that.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, it doesn't matter who you are. If you've got something you want to do, chase it till you get there, or if it is something that you get to do and it's just not for you and you're not having fun, go do something else, But Cheech is having a good time with it. I'm excited to get on the big track with him, to be honest, because those Dodge trucks, they're fast, and if I could take one of those down, that's just another notch on my belt.
So one of my good friends, I was talking to him earlier today, and he used to be a tech official with Feld, and he told me a kind of a funny story about you. It's a clean story. So you guys did a show in Puerto Rico, and he told me that Nicole Johnson learned you remember this? Nicole Johnson learned a whole interview in Spanish, and you were like, I want to say something in Spanish. So this is what he told me. I don't know if it's true or not. After her interview, the host was like, "Oh, Aaron wants to say something to you guys in Spanish," and you were just like, "See," and walked away.
I did.
That's almost like Ricky Bobby. Like, where do I do my hands?
Yeah, they thought I was going to say something good. I just did one word left.
Oh my god, that is amazing. Like, I swear to God, like if I ever somehow get a chance to drive a truck in a competition, like that's still the dream at 32 years old. Like, I'm just being honest. Like I swear I'm gonna do the whole Ricky Bobby. Like, what do I do with my hands? The truck felt great. You go shock great.
Yeah.
Like how is another thing I like to ask people, how is the camaraderie between you guys on the tour? Like, especially that for the more Monster Jam Triple Threat tour, how is the camaraderie between everybody? Because you guys are out there week after week after week, show after show after show. And, did you guys play any like pranks on each other? Like, how are you guys behind the scenes there?
It was a lot of fun. That group of people, if I could do another tour with that group of people again, I would do it in a heartbeat. We had a lot of fun. We played a lot of jokes on each other. There was one time I was in the locker room and Tyler Meninga, he was driving the Gravedigger Speedster, an ATV. I went in there and I Sharpied flames inside of his goggles and colored them in. And he thought they were on the outside. So he went to try and wipe them off, and they were on the inside. So he ran that whole weekend with Sharpied flames on the inside of his goggles. It was pretty funny. He pulled up next to me on the line, and he looked at me. He was like, "What?" It's like, "That looks good, right?" Oh yeah, yeah. No short on jokes on that group of people. Everybody we run with, we get along pretty well. We try to make it fun because we're on the road with each other so much. So anytime we can get out and see the sights and play jokes on each other, we will.
You growing up in Oregon, and you mentioned the Sublimity Harvest Festival, and that's coming up very soon. Is that something that you would like to take your trucks to at some point, and kind of full circle moment for you?
Yeah, I've been there a couple times with Dave Smith stuff, and drove the Patriot truck there once, and I took the Devastator there one year when we first
Okay.
got it. So it wouldn't be the first time it's there, but the main thing I wanted to get there is my new one, because that's what started it all, is the Harvest Festival and the truck and tractor pull. And so to get a tractor-based monster truck back to my hometown, I mean, that would be so cool because that's what I've been working for my whole life.
And it'd be the complete full circle moment for you, especially
Yep.
having, do you have a name for the truck yet? Are you allowed to say anything about that, or is it kind of TBA?
I did. I got a name. I haven't released it yet.
Okay, so hopefully we eventually will find that out. And
Oh yeah.
one of my last questions here, what would you say to somebody that's wanting to get into the industry? Because a couple of years ago, trying to get into the industry was very hard because, and I touched on think this last week, the week before, the whole super fan thing. It's such a negative connotation, and I've been called it. Other people like Bill Payne, that was my nickname, super fan. Whenever I would do shows with them, it was, oh, come here, super fan. And I knew Bill was just messing with me. Like, that's
Yeah.
just how Bill is. But
Yeah.
like, what would you say to somebody wanting to get into the industry and pursue their dreams, like you and your brother did, and countless others?
The super fan um, tagline. There's a lot of super fans that drive race trucks nowadays. You can't just say, "Oh, he's a super fan. He's not going to know how to drive." Um, Dave Oldford was too tall. He's a super fan, and look what he can do. It's
Yep.
not out of the realm to think you can't do it. So when I got into it, I'm not a super fan. I didn't chase them around and all that. I got into it because they were at the events I was at. I didn't chase them down and all that. Um, so I just, I got lucky talking with Jimmy, and he was actually looking for somebody, and it worked out. Um, I guess it's cliche, but if you want to go do it, you just got to find a way to talk to the independent trucks, because that's who hires people, is the independent trucks. Everybody's like, how do I get to Monster Jam University? Well, you're probably never going to get there unless you're a specific type of person that they're looking for. So you gotta, this industry is built on independent race teams. So you got to go to them. You got to talk to them. If you can get behind the scenes and talk to them at a county fair like Cheech is at, at a truck and tractor pull or just a display, you'll eventually find somebody that's looking to train somebody or needing somebody, and that's basically how I got into it. You just gotta chase it down.
Yeah,
Gotta
you
want
gotta
it.
you gotta take that shot. That's how I've been able to do stuff with Bill Payne, and worked with Darren Miguez, Matt Brokaw and them when they were Jimmy Cretin. And so what shows you guys got coming up? I know you guys have been doing a lot of stuff with the Monster Truck Insanity Tour. Because they have the West Coast and East Coast deal. Where you guys heading next?
Can you still see me?
Yeah, I still got you.
Okay, I'm gonna look at my calendar here. I've got coming up. I have a display here in town this weekend at the Nebraska State Fair on Sunday. Gonna try and raise some money for the Children's Museum. And then September 16th, I go to Van Buren, Arkansas for Live a Little. And then Joplin, Missouri, the weekend after that for Live a Little. And then Fort Smith, Arkansas. And then I think that's it for race truck stuff. I only got a handful of shows left with the race truck.
And then it's probably tear down time and get ready for next season, eh?
Yeah, tear some stuff down, put some fresh paint on it, patch up the vinyl, go through the planetaries. You go get time to work on the new truck and put some parts on it. Yeah, we stay pretty busy.
And I gotta ask before we end: is the new truck going to have zoomies?
The new truck will have zoomies.
Yes, zoomies. I did a bit a couple weeks ago where it was just like, zoomies just make everything better.
Oh, the engine breathes a lot better too.
Oh yeah.
I put Mark built a set of exhaust setters for it to run the mufflers on it when we were running Monster Jam. And I took the muffler part off, but left the collector header on it. And this engine does not like collector headers. It starts pushing oil out of places it shouldn't be pushing because it's too much back pressure. So as soon as I put the zoomies on, I got a text from Mark. Thank goodness you put the zoomies back on. But
well, like growing up watching Monster Jam, one of the best sounds ever of every single episode was Dennis hitting that 1-2 in his digger. Just like there's nothing.
Oh yeah.
Like
well, this is a 3-speed, so I get the 1, 2, 3, and everybody loves it.
So, guys, next week we have the reigning, defending Monster Jam World Finals Racing Champion Tristan England on the show next week. I just got that text from Cheech, so just want to put that out there. Is there any social media for you guys with your team and what you're doing?
We got our Facebook page, Double Action Motorsports. We have an Instagram, Double Action Motorsports Instagram, or Basl Twin 1, Basl Twin 2 for Darren. Check out these new crew shirts we got from Angry Ducks Graphics.
Isn't that Chris Parrish?
No, this is a company called Angry Ducks Graphics that does all my t-shirt designs for me. They do my fire suits.
I thought Chris Parrish with the Monster Blog went by Angry Duck at one point, so that's why I was confused. But those look awesome, man. Like the colors pop on it.
Fresh out of the box. Just got it out of the box before the show.
Oh, so you're seeing that for the first time.
Yeah. So if you want to support the team, we have a set of these on that are going to be on Angry Ducks Graphics website. If you click on the Double Action Motorsports link on there, and there's other monster trucks on there too. You can buy all kinds of apparel from monster truck teams on there, but I'm particular for the Double Action Motorsports. Go buy your t-shirt.
Hey, I'm going to be purchasing one of those selves to go with these awesome Crush This shirts. We also sell these from 6B Apparel. Had to put that plug in there as well since we're promoting crew shirts. But Aaron, thank you for coming on. It was awesome being able to talk with you. And, hopefully when you get your new truck, we'll definitely have you on. I'd love to have you and your brother on at some point. And,
absolutely.
That'd be
the whole point. That's the whole point of getting the second one, so we can come back to Double Action Motorsports.
Oh yeah.
Right now I'm just Action Motorsports because there's only one of me.
Single Action Motorsports. Yeah. And by the way, I understand what it's like having, because like my brother's technically my twin, even though we're 2 years apart, we look very similar. So I understand the pain of because growing up through like school, I was called my brother's name. So that was always hard.
Yeah.
But guys, before we sign off, I always like to end with this. Check up on your friends and family. Mental health is very important. A couple weeks ago, it was the anniversary of Mike Thompson's passing. If you know somebody struggling with mental health or anything, please reach out. Your life is worth more than losing it. And guys, next week is Tristan England. So again, Aaron, thank you for coming on. It was awesome chatting with you, and we'll definitely have you on with your brother soon.
Well, thanks for having me. Hopefully sooner than later.
Oh, definitely. All right, guys. Keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up. Peace.
Yes, sir.